done with in their own region, which is early game leads, and then holding on to those early game leads to then transition into stronger team fights in the mid game.
Well, we've transitioned back into Champion Select, so let's see how the draft plays out. Aatrox was the intended ban from Ascension Gaming that they missed out on. That's going to be banned away from SuperMassive this time around. Irelia, the ban coming out in response, making sure that there's not going to be any of that dashing and slashing and comeback potential we saw in just the last game.
So they're going to keep to the same bans that they had in that last time that these two teams matched up. Urgot was their third and final ban, but again, remember, they are on the blue side, so they could look to prioritize it if they want to. You could also force Ascension into an Urgot ban, which is what they're looking like.
Trying to force the Urgot ban because SuperMassive does have first pick, while also removing that LeBlanc that you were talking about that was so big for Ascension. Even though they lost on day number 1 against SuperMassive, the LeBlanc was the only champion that never died.
Yes.
Her Nexus died before she ever did.
And G4, he had a great performance on it, but it will leave open the Akali. We have seen teams prioritize it and get shut down as a result. Now, SuperMassive, they've invested so many bans in towards the mid lane. First picking the Akali would definitely be a risk, given that we've seen so many counters come out. So instead, they're going to lock a bit of a comfort in for Fanfabulous, which is something that you can generate pressure with in the laning phase, but still acts as a tank. And I feel that is the best style of champion for Fanfabulous.
It's a great style of champion to just pick as the first thing, too. You can blind pick that safely. Oh, he's got a strong lane and we can throw him as a big meatball into the team fight. That's phenomenal. That works with everything.
But also for Ascension, we heard on the desk that they want to see Rocky on more carry champions. And you look at the kind of champions that he played, Darius, Renekton, Kennen. The fact that you first pick Sion means that it gives a couple more options for Rocky to pick one of these more carry-style top laners if that's the direction that they want to go for, as Ascension so far just lock in a staple core.
I really want to see Darius. That would be...
He got buffs. He did get buffs.
That's why I want to see him. I want to see him take the axe and see if he can chop down the Sion axe versus axe. But we'll see how that plays out. Right now, let's go with what we know. And we know Alistar and Gragas have been locked in for Ascension. SuperMassive respond by grabbing the Thresh for Snowflower.
And this is a bit of a Snowflower special.
Yes, sir.
This guy is a huge playmaker. He receives so much praise within his own region, and giving him the Thresh means that they're feeling confident. They lock in the Varus as well. This is a strong 2v2 lane that SuperMassive will definitely look to play around.
Varus, so good of a laner, and also the team fighting power of the champion, the damage he can put out once he's got a couple of items, along with Ginsu's Rage Blade. We'll see how that plays out as Ascension Gaming have grabbed Xayah for themselves, an AD carry that you often see picked with her duo in Rakan, but this time around they're saying, all right, Xayah doesn't need Rakan. She's going to be the one that we really need here. The Featherstorm, of course, giving her the ability to get out of trouble post-6, but early on, both of these AD carries are vulnerable to ganks, and we'll see if the junglers pay attention to them.
Yes, we certainly will. It looks like that Ascension right now focusing their attention in on the junglers. SuperMassive going for pretty standard top lane bans in the Ornn. It is something that Rocky has played a fair amount of, but we're still looking at those carries, Flowers. We're still keeping our eyes on what Rocky could potentially bring out, given that he does have quite a wealth of champions at his discretion. The SuperMassive just continue to stick with the standard bans for now.
Ascension Gaming getting rid of Olaf, getting rid of Nocturne, making sure that Stomage doesn't have two of those big powerful junglers at his disposal. Knowing that they already have the Gragas, they're not too worried about shooting themselves in the foot with those kinds of bans. As SuperMassive does have one more to go. Are you going to keep targeting those tanks in the top lane? It looks like no. They're saying, please keep Akali away from our Varus. He does not want anything to do with that. Zeitnot is way too important to have him be jumped on by that assassin that can just insta-give him out of the fight.
Now, earlier in the day, we did see GBM get counterpicked by Perks with his Orianna into the Cassio, and he struggled in the laning phase. This time around, Ascension will continue to save their mid laner pick for G4, which means he should get the counterpick against GBM as well.
Also worth noting that while you expect this to be Camille top with Gragas jungle, it can be a swap with Gragas top and Camille in the jungle. So that is not 100%. That could go either way here. Ascension Gaming has that possibility.
Both have played Camille. Neither of them have played Gragas during their regular season.
So it's a big thinking emoji. It's a big thinking emoji.
The biggest, I would say.
A grand thinking emoji, one might say. As Galio is locked in on the side of SuperMassive. They're saying, all right, you're picking your mid laner last. We're going to pick something that feels pretty comfortable into a lot of different matchups. The Galio for themselves, also a strong defensive option, so even if he falls behind, still going to be relevant.
I like this.
Jarvan is locked in for Stomage.
So pretty big team fight coming out from SuperMassive again, tying into what we were talking about. Their strength really comes from the 20-minute mark, and when you have this kind of a draft, you have easy engage, you have good follow-up, and you kind of set up Zeitnot to be that big carry on the Varus as well.
This is the first Jarvan of play-ins. This is the first Jarvan that Stomaged has played all split long. He did not have any plays on this during summer. He's now breaking it out. There is the ability to, of course, lock people into that death cage. You can just get them stuck in there, no way out, free firing time for the Varus. Of course, Jarvan Galio, I still have nightmares of this combination because this is what Team WE used against Cloud9 in the quarterfinals last year in Game 5 that got them the win against them. It's such a powerful combination together that if you can put them in the dunk zone and then double dunk in the dunk zone, that's a lot of CC, it's a lot of damage, and it's a big problem if you can't get out.
But Gragas, Gragas, Xayah, and Corki, all so much mobility and disengage tools on these three champions could make it very difficult for SuperMassive to find those big fights. And, you know, we talk about Ascension looking to try and play through the early game, try and snowball around the first 15 minutes. You look at this comp and they have pretty good scaling. You have a Xayah, you have a Corki in there as well. Camille is going to do exceptional in a side lane later on into the game. They have strong 1-3-1 capabilities, and as long as they don't fall behind too much in the early game, they have the ability to potentially outplay SuperMassive as the game progresses.
Quick correction on my statement earlier. I had to double check to make sure it was not actually Jarvan in the 5th game in the WE versus C9 match. I do believe that was in there earlier on, but bygones are bygones. The past is the past. The present is now, and that's what we're looking at. Jarvan Galio, very dangerous combination if they get ahead, if they're able to make those plays. But Ascension, we already said we're looking at early moves from this team. We're looking for them to make things happen during those early moments of the game, get themselves snowballing and put the pressure on SuperMassive.
But I do feel that with their comp, even if they're not able to do that, they have late game options. Corki, extremely scary once he completes 3 major items. And I feel that Ascension, they've drafted themselves a very solid 1-3-1. The ability to play on the side lanes does exist for them, whereas SuperMassive, they're pretty reliant on getting this group up and fight style of comp. They're putting a lot of emphasis on Zeitnot to be the damage dealer, and we saw in the last game that if you're able to kill that AD carry quickly, then all your damage disappears. So Rocky will be a big part of shutting Zeitnot down in these later stages fights, and honestly getting ahead as well. The analyst desk wanted to see Rocky on more of a carry champion. Well, they got it. He's on the Camille. He's on a champion that he has played 2 games of during the regular season, and it's something that he can have more of an independent act with.
And one thing that I also want to make sure that we're tracking as this game goes on, because with Corki in the game, there's always this extra element that you've got to keep in mind of the package.
Yes.
The package oftentimes ends up just having the timer expire and you shoot it off into the river somewhere and it doesn't do anything, but that's because once it comes online, the enemy team gets the alert and they have to play careful. They have to play back. And I want to see how well SuperMassive respects that, because if you don't, that is a massive opening that they could potentially use for the side of Ascension.
I'd love to see him at around the 8-minute mark actually make a roam up towards the top side. I feel that if one of your win conditions is trying to get Rocky ahead on the Camille, then investing that package towards something like a top lane dive paired up with your jungler is a great way to start off your early game if they're able to pull it off, because of course, Sion, a very difficult champion to kill, especially in the early game. So we'll see where he chooses to invest that package. As for now, we just see a bit of early trading across the board.
Top side, Rocky and Fabulous. One-on-one, Camille versus Sion. It's probably not going to be a super exciting matchup up here. Sion will just like to shove that lane in, and Rocky will have to farm up on the back foot until he gets a little bit more damage on this Camille. Remember, this isn't like the Fiora. Nice hook at the bottom side there onto Rich. More damage coming out from SuperMassive. But yeah, the last game we saw Fiora versus a Sion, and Fiora gets to the point where she's just that massive tank buster with true damage. Sion can't be tanky enough to survive it. Camille's not the same. She has damage potential, yes. She has true damage, yes. As a nice steal comes in from Stomage, keeping that blue buff away from Lloyd.
But you're right. Camille isn't quite the same in terms of late game split pushing power. When you often compare her to something like a Fiora, she is the slightly better team fighter, whereas Fiora is the better split pusher. And it's interesting to think Camille is like the hybrid between split pushing and team fighting. She offers value in both, but doesn't excel in either. That's why it's really important to get her ahead, especially against tanks, because she can still thrive in a split push situation, but you have to have that extra item or that extra bit of gold to really be that threatening split pusher if you want to have strong side lane presence.
Playing GBM, finding a taunt down onto G4, but he throws the enchanted auto attack onto the minions, so the trade not quite as strong as it could be. GBM also out of mana, likely going home now to shop up, upgrade that refillable into a corrupting potion, and come back with more laning strength as Lloyd just hangs around the top side here, clearing out some scuttle grabs.
And note the path that Stomage took. He started blue, into red, into enemy invade. And while Lloyd did have his blue buff stolen away from him, and he's kind of behind in terms of experience, the entire top side of Supermassive jungle is available for the taking. And given the priority that Rocky has in this 1 versus 1, means that Lloyd can steal away some of these camps and still feel pretty safe with how things are going.
Stomage still hanging around here on this top side. Lloyd already used the body slam getting over that last wall, so he probably has to flash. Yep.
He thought the blast cone was there. That's why he it over the wall. Now Rich is in.
Oh, Rich flashes out, but the flash into the play to follow it up. Rich is down in first blood over to the Supermassive bottom lane. We praised these guys before, and for good reason, Vedius. They're on the board.
And this is why we talked about the special Thresh pick for Snowflower. A pick that he locks in when he's feeling confident. He finds a good hook. He's able to lock down Rich, and they had no heal, which means that an easy kill comes through for the Supermassive duo, and now they find themselves with first blood.
They find themselves with first blood, pushing up the bottom lane. Let's take another look here at the playmates.
So Rich just gets a little too close to an area of the lane that doesn't belong to him. Snowflyer starts with the flake, and then Rich ends up getting hooked in, takes way too much damage from Zeitnot. He's then forced to flash, there's no heal to back him up, and then the Lantern is there to help bring Zeitnot in as well. He used the heal, I feel a little unnecessary, but still it ends up securing a kill.
Used it for the haste. And that's the thing though, when your AD carry takes teleport for having those better back timers, for making sure that they're going to have that extra late game rotation capability as well, you don't have laning strength.
Yep.
And that means that sometimes your cow gets turned into burgers and there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing you can do. Snowflower reins him in with the good lasso and ends up...
It is so appropriate.
It is
the
so
lasso
appropriate.
on a cow.
And look at the item difference too. A Bilgewater Cutlass already completed for Zeitnot, whereas the double longsword for Nixar, that is not the first back that you really want to be seeing as an AD carry.
No, definitely not this time around. Stomaged in the enemy jungle, recognizing the fact that his lanes have priority in both mid and bottom, so he feels safe making that invade happen.
Yep.
First Elemental Drake this time around is going to be a Cloud, so no one's investing any resources into that just yet. GBM flash into the taunt. Stomage has the knock-off, and the Wombo combo is massive for Supermassive. They grab themselves kill number 2 as bottom side. Ascension's trying to make the play in a 3 versus 2, bringing Lloyd down to the bottom lane, but he doesn't have the same success.
And now Supermassive, they find themselves with another kill on the board. Ascension unable to answer back. Rocky even TPs into the mid lane to pick up the farm. And this early game is not going the same way that it did the last time that these two teams met.
Yeah, the last time these two teams met, Ascension's early game was on point, but this time around, with plays like this coming out from GBM and Stomage, they're making sure they stay ahead.
And GBM, he flashes in to guarantee the taunt. That makes it easy for Stomage to guarantee the knockup, resulting in another clean kill. And now Rich, using the Hetz flash, he's sending a message.
Saying, I can do this every 20 seconds. You better be ready for it, buddy. I tell you what, as you can see on your screen right now, the early game from that first time that these two teams played, at 15 minutes, Ascension was 4-0. They were down farm, though.
Yes.
And that's the thing that you've got to keep in mind is while they can get scrappy and while they can find these advantages, their laning overall wasn't quite as strong.
And a lot of that lead... came from their mid laner in G4. He got his hands on the LeBlanc, and he was just roaming around the map, finding a bunch of kills. You can see his damage contribution was huge, but Ascension, they're trying to play around the bot lane for the time being.
Ascension wants to make it happen here again. The 2 versus 2 comes out. Zeitnot is taken down without even needing Lloyd to come in there yet. Snowflower's in some trouble. One more auto attack should finish that one off. A double kill for Ascension will tie this game up.
And their persistency pays off. Ascension, they invest multiple ganks towards the bot side of the map, and while the first two may have failed, third time ends up being lucky for them. They didn't even really need Lloyd in the first setup because Rich played it beautifully, getting a really good interrupt onto the Lantern, meant that Zeitnot couldn't get to safety, he didn't have his heal available, and now it is Nixar who sits on 2 kills with a BF sword in his inventory.
And Lloyd's just stealing away the enemy red buff. He knows where Stomaged is, knows that he's not in any danger while he's taking this one away. One more slap onto that Brambleback will give him the buff, and he dashes out over the wall in time. Unluckily collides into the Drake itself to draw some aggro, but let's take another look at the 2v2.
So Rich Hex flashes in. Oh, the Lantern just goes a little too far back. Zeitnot has to path backwards, which then enables Rich to get the initial knockup, and then he interrupts the dash back with the Lantern itself. So then with Lloyd showing up, they have enough chain CC to lock down Snowflower, who'd already used his flash from earlier on, resulting in 2 quick kills going over to Ascension.
And talking about flashes, we memed the Hex flash earlier, but Rich started that play off, Hex flashing out of the brush.
It was about sending him.
He did.
He was literally saying, next time I do this, I'm coming for you. This is a warning.
The next time is a death sentence, and sure enough.
You know, it's like a warning shot, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you guys better get out of here. I'm telling you right now, this is your one chance. And they didn't get out. They ended up getting punished. It is still an early game gold lead for SuperMassive as we crest the 9-minute mark. 800 gold up for
the
them.
Dive.
As bottom side, GBM and Stomaged have both shown up. Remember, once somebody goes in, whether it's Snowflower off of a hook, Stomaged off of the EQ combo, the Galio can join in and follow up, but GBM has left. SuperMassive has decided to change the plan, just focus on Turret instead. Won't be able to quite find that just yet. Rich tries to go in, Stomaged getting himself out with that EQ as Lloyd makes the engage. Explosive Cast gonna knock 2 back. Rich still gonna be taken very low in this when the Cataclysm comes down, looking to burn down that support. They've got him. Death sentence now down onto the enemy. Grok is here as well. GBM making his entrance, heroically of course, as G4 manages to find the kill into Zeitnot before he dies himself. It's 3-for-1 SuperMassive.
And the execution falls apart for Ascension as SuperMassive find a huge fight. Nixar now on the run.
GBM still going after this enemy AD carry. He doesn't have flash. He used the ult already. The taunt comes down, but do they have the damage to finish this one off cleanly? They will. Vedius shutdown credit over to GBM.
4 kills go in favor of SuperMassive as they demolish this early game skirmish. Ascension, you've got to see here that there is just a numbers advantage in favor of SuperMassive, and Ascension are just a little uncoordinated. Rich tries to interrupt Stomage, but then Zeitnot doesn't even get CC'd, so he's perfectly safe. Then Ascension, you can see Lloyd diving in, really good barrel, but then Rich has taken way too much damage. The Corki is nowhere near, and by the time he arrives, that's when Galio chooses to join the fray. And at this point, Ascension don't have the numbers, they don't have the damage, they'll only find 1 kill, and SuperMassive cleanup.
And that Acer Predator replay really showed as well how sometimes, even if you have the package, you can't win the fight if things have already started off poorly enough. Going 1-for-1, not what you want to do with this mid laner on the side of Ascension. When we talked about SuperMassive earlier, when we talked about what this team is able to do, I mentioned how Zeitnot does 31% of his team's damage. That's the highest number on that team. Over on the other side for Ascension, it's G4 who does 29% of his team's damage on average through their regular summer split. That's their highest number. And when your highest number, your big cannon, your artillery, flies in and ends up just going 1-for-1, that is not a good trade.
No, it certainly is not. It has resulted now with SuperMassive picking up the Rift Herald, sitting at a 2,500 gold lead. And while Ascension looked good in their ability to get a couple kills back on the bot side of the map, that team fight has resulted in a huge swing in favor of SuperMassive and how they control the game moving forward.
SuperMassive have some big leads in a couple different places for farm. About 20 up in the jungle, 20 up in the bottom lane, 10 up in the mid lane. But top side, it's Rocky, who's 30 CS ahead of Fabulous and that Scion pick. Of course, picking Scion means you can fall behind in farm and not feel as bad as you would if you were on something that was more carry-oriented, something that we would look at in something like the Aatrox that they played in the previous game already today. Scion just happy to farm up, build up some extra HP with the W.
And I'll be honest, I was expecting Ascension to invest more resources into the top side of the map. We talked about how we wanted to see the package used towards the top lane. We thought that Lloyd might be trying to just get Rocky ahead, but they've just invested so many resources into the bot side, and while initially it didn't look promising, and yes, they were able to get a couple kills, it's now ended up backfiring, and more weight now falls on Rocky's shoulders to find some kind of way to bring the team back into this game.
And speaking of bringing the team in, Snowflower throws the lantern back there, but it lands on the wrong side of the wall, so he can't bring his teammate in. That's actually been the second time so far the lantern hasn't been in the right spot for SuperMassive. So while Snowflower has done some good aggressive plays on the Thresh, his defensive positioning is leaving a little to be desired early on here. We'll see if he can.
Are you criticizing these Snowflower's Thresh there, Captain Flowers?
I'm criticizing these Snowflower's lantern, sir. The rest of the Thresh has been fantastic. It's been on point.
0, 1, and 5 right now. He's been involved in the vast majority of kills, but you are right. A couple of his lanterns have been off-center, I think we can say.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it.
And Zeitnot now sitting at a 2-2-2 scoreline. You can blame that on the lanterns. I think it's safe to do that. So Zeitnot will be looking to improve his KDA as the game progresses, because we slowed things down a little bit now. I think we should check in with some of the items that have been completed. Trinity Force is now finished for G4. That is a big item, completed
1 item
for
power
the
spike.
Yeah, 100%. And interestingly enough, we actually get GBM going for the Proto Belt rather than more of the defensive option, but he has double Dark Seal, and he's got 7 stacks on that. Now, I'm pretty sure that the stacks don't stack.
Yeah.
However,
you can't have stacks on stacks.
Yes, but he does still have 7 stacks, which is still a healthy amount of stacks to have.
Yes, sir. 7 stacks, 3 shy of the maximum you can get on that item. Of course, it can go further if you upgrade it to Medgize, but that's mostly a meme item.
GBM, don't do that.
Don't do that. If you're watching from home, please don't build Medgize.
Don't
Unless you're legitimately smurfing, then you can build Medgize. Fabulous, making a rotation down towards the mid lane here, but he's about to walk into a brush full of multiple Ascension members, and this is not where you want to be. Even as a tanky boy, you're not going to get away too well from that one until Galio comes in and says, don't worry, buddy, I got you.
Galio is here. Everything is all right. Fabulous is able to walk away with that one just fine. He didn't have his flash available, so could have ended in disaster. Now, Rich gets reined in.
Another good lasso coming out from Snowflower on this one. GBM able to find the taunt down onto 2. Zeitnot's in some trouble. Lloyd looking to find the damage onto him. Flashback, giving himself alive, grabbing the kill down now onto Lloyd. Roots come out. Nixar unleashes the ultimate, looking to keep himself in a decent enough spot. Ascension Gaming going to be taken very low. Zeitnot has already been taken down, though. Rocky's into the back line. Nixar is going to be taken almost down, but not quite yet. Snowmaid's grabbing that kill with the Dragon Lance, as now Ascension are still looking to run down the rest of SuperMassive. They've managed to win themselves the fight.
This ends up being a big win for Ascension. The fact that SuperMassive funneled themselves into that choke point behind the blue buff meant that all the AoE damage coming out from both Xayah and Corki was enough to swing the fight in Ascension's favor, and they're showing that even in the early game deficit that they find themselves in, they're willing to fight, and they're actually able to win out on some of these against SuperMassive.
Quick, Shelly, distract them. That's what Stomage wants Shelly to do, and she will serve her job well, although she won't get a charge off onto the turret. F in the chat, Rip Brave Shelly, you did your best. And Ascension did their best in that fight, and honestly, pulled it off from a deficit. 2,500 gold down still, but they made this work.
So you can see this is Snowflower trying to lock Rich down. He kind of looks like he's out of position, especially with the SuperMassive members collapsing, but then keep your eyes on Zeitnot here. He is kind of isolated, and a good flash in from Lloyd, but he is then isolated, and the damage just rips through him because of how squishy he is. Now you can see that the Xayah isn't really harmed. He's able to get off all this AoE damage, and then Rocky joins the fray. They kill Zeitnot, and now all the damage is gone. So while there are a lot of low health members on either side, G4 is still healthy, Rich gets a really good flash knock-up in there, and everything is still in favor of Ascension because they killed Zeitnot. And if they're able to do this time and time again, then Ascension, that is how they win these fights.
Taking that big damage source out of these fights, that Varus, that 80 carry that SuperMassive relies on to win the team fights, so important.
And we have to bring into question GBM's Galio build. Yes, Zeitnot might be the primary damage dealer, but GBM needs to be a frontline. He needs to be someone that can help protect rather than try to attack. And right now...
But what if he protect but also attack?
But I don't think he can. He's building a needlessly larger... I think he's going for the Spellbinder. And I'll be honest, GBM has had some creative builds in the past. Like he built a Spirit Visage earlier on the Casio, and I don't always agree with those builds. So, you know, like they're called meta builds for a reason. That's because they work. So we'll see how well this one pays off for him, but I'm a bit of a skeptic.
Would you say this build's a little risky?
I would say this build is certainly a little risky, Captain Flowers.
We'll see if the risk pays off for GBM and SuperMassive. They still maintain their lead for now. Bottom side, you can see those mid laners just doing the split push game right now. G4 on that Corki, 2-2-1, 20 CS up over his opponent. BF Sword in inventory. As you said, this is a champion that has a lot of damage potential with 2 or 3 items under his belt. As he continues to scale, you've got to keep 2 different targets on this enemy team constantly suppressed, constantly out of damage dealing range to the big power members on the GBM and SuperMassive lineup. GBM and Zeitnot, I should say, are the 2 guys that you have to keep that damage off of, because Corki and Zaya together will melt them.
And you got to, and that's exactly it, right? When you compare the ability to get through a front line, you would argue that Ascension's ability is that much stronger, but then at the same time, Ascension don't have much of a front line.
No.
So for Zeitnot, he could hit anyone and he'll do a huge amount of damage. Now we see a TP flank coming in from SuperMassive.
They've got GBM on the front. Looking to start things off here. It's going to be Lloyd that they find their way onto. That is not a tanky Gragas. Goes into stasis. They bring in the cavalry charge from Fabulous. Still a lot of damage coming out onto Zeitnot. He cannot stay safe as Ascension look to turn the fight around. Snowmage's going to be running away low health off to the side. GBM going to be taken very low here too. He's caught by the ultimate from the Camille as Fabulous grabs the kill on an Ixstar now as well. You've still got 1 carry alive on Ascension in the form of G4. Still looking to press this fight even further. Snowflower and Fabulous hanging around, plenty of HP, but the damage dealers are dead for SuperMassive.
And you can see how Ascension, it is getting easier and easier for them to dive onto Zeitnot in the backline. And I'm not sure how, but GBM's ulti was interrupted. I want to say it was rocky, and it was pivotal for Ascension to be able to come out with some kills in that, because it could have ended in disaster for Ascension as we end up with 2 for 2, but Ascension are the ones getting onto the tower and are forcing SuperMassive back.
Right. When you look at the damage potential on the side of SuperMassive, Thresh doesn't do damage. Full tank Sion, not a lot of damage. Full tank Jarvan, again, no damage.
Yes.
As long as Galio and Varus are the ones dead, push isn't happening. Let's take another look at how it all went down.
Let's see where the interruption comes in. So, the Galio TP's in from behind. They're trying to punish Rich and Lloyd for being out of position. And then he's just sitting on the backline. Now, the big thing here is the Corki TP comes in. He gets a huge package off on the backline. And then the Galio ulti, it tries to come in to protect Zeitnot. And then the stun comes through from Rich to interrupt it as well. So that was really pivotal in allowing Ascension to come out fairly successful in this fight, because you can see how low Nixar gets as well, and Rocky and G4 kind of split up on the backline. And at this point in the game, in the mid game, tanks still do a lot of damage. But as the game progresses, once the 2 or 3 items start to come through for Ascension, it'll get harder and harder for these tanks to be able to deal with these high damage dealers. And that's why we kind of keep looking at Ascension being like, the fact that they're going even in these fights at this point in the game is a really big deal for them.
It's really a pivotal moment in the game right now, Vedius. 21 minutes in, less than 2,000 gold separates the teams. Plenty of playmaking opportunity on both sides in terms of the tools you've got available. And the big name that I'm looking at in these past couple of fights is Zeitnot, because he's not in the right spot. His positioning has been leaving a lot to be desired. He seems to be getting caught out and killed nearly at the onset of everything, and he cannot be in a position like that. Not in this 2-threat comp, not in a situation where once you go down, your opponents will just run everyone else over.
You've also got to remember that Snowflower, throughout this tournament, he's been playing Tahm Kench, Morgana, and he's been peeling Zeitnot. Now he's on the Thresh, now he's on the Playmaker, and in lane, it was great. They were getting kills, they were being aggressive, but now in the team fights, Thresh doesn't provide that same level of peel. He can't protect you from all of the backline threats that are diving on top of you, and what's he going to do against the Gragas ultimate? You know, there's so much disruption in these fights that there's only so much Snowflower can do, so the positioning of Zeitnot is going to have to be pivotal if SuperMassive want to come out ahead in these fights. Now, we have to remember there's SuperMassive still with the gold lead,
yes sir,
still with the tower lead, still with the Drake lead, overall, still in the lead. So it's not all out for them yet.
Right, you can see them, they're the ones pushing into enemy territory. They're the ones applying the pressure. You can see plenty of wards placed down by them around this entrance to the enemy jungle here north of the mid lane. G4 walking over to some of those right now. We'll reveal some of that with the Scryer's plant, as Ascension will clear some of those away. But the reason, Vedius, there's so much vision being placed down in this area, the big purple either throw or binge or carry, whatever you want to call him. He is a machine. and that is going to be so important here.
Yes, and SuperMassive don't have the fastest Baron-taking team, but they do have a really good team fight team, and if they can set up the proper execution, then it's really a difficult thing to deal with, especially when you think about how hard it can be for Rocky to get involved in these fights. But I also want to look at some of the levels that we can see across the board. Level 15 for Rocky, 13 for Fabulous, 13 for Stomage, only 11 for Lloyd, who is exceptionally squishy and is building more AP.
And look at the farm for Lloyd. He's not only 2 levels behind, he's 60 CS down on his jungle opponent. This is a guy who used to play AD carry, switched over to the jungle position, and this game, he's done okay for himself. He's been a part of 5 kills out of the 8 his team has, but 3 deaths. Not exactly where you want to be, giving over a few more of those than he'd like. As Fabulous has found the flank onto Ascension here, trying to start the fight up here on the side, as Rich is also going to be in some trouble off the left there. Fabulous tries to get himself away, going to be interrupted by the Hextech Ultimatum. Galliwalty coming in now as well. GBM looking to find a massive taunt! He's killing everybody! Ascension Esports is on the run as SuperMassive find an absolutely phenomenal amount of CC.
That was a fantastic combo from GBM and Stomage. And Rocky gets interrupted. He's now on the run as SuperMassive are coming in for the chase. They could look to go for the Baron if they wanted to. All 5 members are alive, and they're just trying to buy time right now. What can Rocky do?
Rocky is just going to go back to base, it appears, as SuperMassive take the team fight win. They're looking for the Baron. Rocky decides to reposition himself and get back to base in a different spot. G4's here, but there's no package. Unless he steals this with a stray rocket by some snowball's chance in him. Oh, Lord, he got pulled in by the lasso, and he is out of there. Shutdown credit over to Snowflower as the Baron goes the way of SuperMassive.
And this is why we were saying it's not all down and out for SuperMassive. If they can just get the execution off in these team fights, then they'll be able to come out on top. And initially, things look dire. Fabulous. He's getting chunked out extremely quickly before the fight even starts. He gets locked in by Rocky, and you think that he's going to die. But a really clutch use of the stone plate means that he buys enough time, he gets out with the lantern, and then here the flash into the taunt, into the Jarvan ultimate is just perfect execution of what they wanted to do. Zeitnot is left untouched. He's able to find himself the double kill, and now SuperMassive are firmly in control of the game.
GBM is the hero of the game for that flash taunt. That completely changed everything about that fight and has subsequently changed everything about the tempo of the mid game. It went from these marginal advantages for SuperMassive, creeping up into the enemy jungle, setting down a ward here and there, to just bulldozing down the mid lane with Baron buff now. You got 4 members here, the 5th waiting behind everybody else. Fabulous can also come in here with the ultimate if needed, and SuperMassive wants to get a lot off of this Baron. Make it so Ascension is permanently stuck in their base, even after the buff wears off.
SuperMassive, they take down one tower. They have a minion wave up top that Rocky is trying to clear out, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to stop the siege of SuperMassive. They've now extended this to a 6,000 gold lead, and they even have the potential to go for a dive if they should want to, but obviously there are always risks with trying to set up that kind of a play as Snowflower continues to look for a target.
Those lassos have found Rich and Lloyd so many times this game. They have really lived up to the name of death sentence so far. SuperMassive will continue the push, putting the damage into the tier 3 turret here in the top side. Lloyd again lassoed up as the Galio ultimate will come in. Will be interrupted there by Rich, but putting himself on the front line means he's now the sacrificial lamb. Fabulous with the Gargoyle Stone Plate will tank up the remaining members. A double kill over to Zeitnot means SuperMassive now pushes all the way into the base. They're looking at the Nexus.
They still have 5 members alive. They have a minion wave available to them. The Baron buff is up and ready. SuperMassive looking to end the game right now.
They're on to Nexus turret number 1. It's out of the picture. Vedius Nexus turret number 2 will face no help either. Ascension are on their last legs here, and they will not have a chance to defend any further. Rocky goes into stasis. Zeitnot's there to pick him up. He grabs the shutdown, and SuperMassive, 27 minutes in, will take down Ascension.
It was a close game. Ascension, they fought back hard. I was optimistic with the way in which they were fighting a lot of those fights, because every time Zeitnot was getting shut down, they were the ones dictating the pace of the fights, and even though they weren't